When Panasonic announced their S1 full-frame cameras, I was baffled to see all the Panasonic abandons Micro Four Thirds and Micro Four Thirds is dead announcements from the camera industry movers and shakers. Now I'm no mover, but I am a bit shaky, so I feel I have half a right to my own opinion. First, Panasonic make many different things, so for example, when they decided to build cameras, they didn't have to stop making vacuum cleaners. Second, apart from being bigger, the S1 is very similar to the G9, the bigger brother you might say. And I'm pleased to say that even though my brother is bigger than me, my mother didn't feel it necessary to kill me when he was born. So, I'm making an assumption that Panasonic intend to keep the Micro Four Thirds range alongside the S1 and S1R. A fair assumption given their investment in Micro Four Thirds so far, and the announcements of body upgrades and new lenses for the system. The S1 is very closely based on the G9, but has some well thought out improvements, the illuminated buttons for example. I would expect to see those and other improvements applied in the next iteration of the G9 and GH series. It's what business calls synergy. Panasonic's research and development work is leveraged across two systems instead of one. That being so, more personally, since I like the G9 so much for its handling and all-round capability, how tempted would I be by a similar model but with intrinsically better image quality and finer depth of field control? I genuinely didn't know. The S1 is very obviously bigger than the G9, a big camera in fact. The body is heavy too, at 1 kilogram, and the chunky 24 to 105mm f4 kit lens adds to that, the outfit coming in at 1.4 kilos, a bit over 3 pounds. For comparison, the G9 with Olympus 12 to 42.8 is about a third of that. The S1 looks tough, and is every inch a professional tool. The rear monitor is more versatile than most full-frame cameras, which are only useful in the landscape mode, but it's no match in its portrait mode for the G9's articulated assembly. You could argue though that in a camera which is likely to see hard and frequent use in professional environments, the tilting mechanism is tougher and so more appropriate. Its magnesium body is weather sealed and rated for use down to -10 degrees centigrade. The mechanical shutter is good for 400,000 actuations. I use the electronic shutter most of the time, as I do on the G9. Panasonic have taken advantage of the large body area to place the controls carefully, and they're all within easy reach, yet spaced enough that you don't accidentally press them. I particularly like the lock lever on the top left of the body, which I use to enable and disable the joystick and touchscreen in one go, so that I know my focus point will always be in the middle when I switch the camera on. I can do that with the G9, but it's a lot more involved. Mirrorless cameras are evolving to a point now where the control and handling are getting close to the ideal. In use, for a Micro Four Thirds user, the weight of the S1 with the standard zoom is a bit of a shock. Once used to it though, the S1 is a joy to use, more so even than the G9. The EVF is big and bold and bright, startlingly so, and the monitor is more detailed and bigger too. The on-body switches and buttons have none of the cramp feel that they can have on the top-line Micro Four Thirds bodies. These things are possible because of the big body, of course. Anyone familiar with the G9 will immediately feel in charge of the S1. There are differences. Joystick moves diagonally as well as up and down, as it should do on the G9. The monitor swiveling takes a bit of getting used to, and the menu and quick menu are changed. The menu system has been reorganised and arranged in a way that makes its complexity seem less daunting. It's obvious to me the amount of work that must have been put in to achieve that. But the fact is, with the broad capabilities and configurability of such an advanced tool as this, a perfect setup could only ever be at best feasible. It could never be easy. On the other hand, set it to intelligent auto and you have the world's biggest and possibly most expensive compact camera. An inescapable fact is lens size. You can't have a bigger image without a bigger lens, and it shows. Panasonic's very sharp 24 to 105mm f4 is not too different in length and weight from the Micro Four Thirds system's 50 to 200 f2.8 to 4, and its girth is actually bigger. The 12 to 32mm mini zoom is so much smaller it's more like a rear lens cap. For me, the S1 feels better than the G9 in use due to its size. It's not as simple as that, of course. When it comes to technical performance, there can only be one winner, the S1. From its native 100 ISO, performance is luxurious. The image is clean and crisp and even usable at silly gain settings like 25,600. The G9 requires more care to get top quality results and can't ultimately compete. Again, it's not as simple as that. Under normal lighting conditions, and on my 2560 by 440 monitor, results from the two cameras are indistinguishable. For hard copies, you need to be printing at 3 feet wide and upwards to see a difference. If you're into wildlife photography under extreme conditions, fast-moving creatures in forests at twilight, the S1 will perform in a way the G9 never can. It's pretty straightforward. The sensor is basically an array of buckets gathering photons instead of water. Quadruple the catchment area and you gather 4 times as many photons in a given time, giving the S1 a permanent 2-stop advantage over the G9. Given the relative sizes of the cameras, I'd almost have expected a bigger advantage for all that extra bulk, but there it is. The S1 uses the same contrast and depth from defocus focusing as the G9. In practical use, both cameras work as well as one another, top flight for single AF, but essentially flawless for anything I do. Personally, I'd be happy to use it for sport, even in dim light, because I've never taken on board the idea that if I have a problem doing something, it's all the camera's fault. Remember, we were seeing great sports pictures long before 60 frames per second, 25,600 ISO continuous autofocus arrived. One thing becomes clear to me in summing up these two cameras. The S1's performance is hobbled, not by any of its own functions or capabilities, but by the media available to view its results. It really deserves and needs to be viewed on a minimum 4 by 3 foot wide print or a 6K monitor. This full frame needs a big expansive canvas to show what it can do. It's a bit like a 700 brake horsepower supercar being used for normal transport. It'll happily do it, but you won't see any difference between it and a family saloon going to the shops. The G9, the M1 Mark II and their siblings on the other hand have a more modest peak performance, though you won't often notice because the output is much more sensibly matched the viewing media we use today. When I embarked on this video, I somehow hoped even, that the S1 would invigorate my ideas, shake me up a bit from my Micro Four Thirds stuck in the madness. Actually it didn't. It reminded me that I prefer the feel of bigger, heavier, more spacious cameras, and that for operational reasons I immensely prefer mirrorless, fully electronic ones. I prefer the feel, the image quality, the spaciousness of the S1 to my G9. The S1 has the machine from solid metal feel of a Hasselblad about it. So where do I find myself in a debate I answered for myself many years ago when I adopted Micro Four Thirds? The answer? Absolutely nothing has changed. I do not see any image quality gain in full frame that compensates for the clumsiness of the system. Point an S1 at someone in the street and you spook them, they smack you in the face. Big camera, you professional, you paparazzi. Point a Micro Four Thirds at them and they see a harmless amateur, so they just don't hit you as hard. I'd expected a lot to talk about in comparing these two cameras, but actually there isn't. They're big and small versions of the same camera, and the pros and cons are a matter for your philosophy. The S1 offers image quality in extremis that the G9 or EM1 never could. It offers depth of field control that Micro Four Thirds never could, though be aware that the shallow depth of field afforded by an 85mm f1.4 lens on the S1 is as much a circus trick as a usable attribute. If technical quality is your prime objective or need, the S1 is your camera, full stop. An S1 would be on a tripod in any studio I owned. Note though that if you buy the 47MP S1R version, or plan to use the high-res modes on either, you'll probably need a new and specialised workstation to handle the massive files you will be dealing with. I'm making the assumption that you wouldn't buy an S1 and then shoot JPEG, the equivalent of installing an automatic gearbox in a Formula 1 car. Reproducing the scope of my everyday kit of 8 to 18, 25mm f1.4 and 50 to 200 or 40 to 150mm zooms for the S1 would be for someone much richer and more muscular than me to do. Compromise on technical perfection, and you have a system in Micro Four Thirds that is more portable, more affordable, and in practical terms similar quality. It's amazing how much more fun photography is when you can carry all your gear in a small shoulder bag on a bus or the tube or on a bicycle. Plus you have a choice between body and lens sizes to afford you a DSLR or almost compact camera feel. I can sit at a keyboard for hours trying to spell out what I think, but sometimes just listening to myself is more honest and more informative. Not once when going out, with the intention to take pictures or not, did I instinctively pick up the S1. I picked it up only to take pictures to show what it could do, only to find that I had no way of really showing it without resorting to test charts. Frustrating. For photographers who prefer mirrorless cameras, and are committed birders, hard-nut sports guys, and anyone having to produce professional results regularly in dim light, who just about manage to get away with Micro Four Thirds image quality, the S1 is the answer. For the rest of us, the majority of us, I think the choice is a simple one. The S1 is for the person who just wants to know they have the best technical quality possible, whether they can use it or not. The G9 is for the pragmatic photographer willing to ditch superfluous image quality in return for portability. You get better pictures with the G9 than you will with an S1 because you'll have it with you more often. I thought that a full-frame G9 might tempt me by bringing something to the table that a DSLR didn't. The S1 has a raft of enhancements to the G9, and it's a kind of super G9. Compared to Olympus's latest Micro Four Thirds, the M1X, it's even cheap. So, will the S1 be usurping my G9 and taking its place in my camera bag? Yes, definitely. Just as soon as Panasonic nullify the laws of physics and build one the size of the G9. Thanks for watching.